Welcome back everybody. Late last year we installed the fridge fan mod to our Jayco camper trailer. And in this episode we do the internal fridge fan mod, installing these 3D print RV KlevaCool fans into our three-way fridge. Now this mod is as easy as it gets. Come along and we'll show you how. So reading through the instructions, this kit won't take very long to install at all. You get the internal fridge fan assembly, the wiring loom which runs through the back of your fridge, which we'll get into shortly, into your external fridge fan kit. If you don't already have an external fridge fan kit, you can also wire this to your battery management system if you only want to run the internal kit itself. However, in this video, we're going to connect the two together as a cohesive system. You also get cable ties as per the original kit. These crimp-on terminals, which are required so that you can feed the cabling through the rear of the fridge. And it even includes some plastic filaments so you can pull your cabling through to the rear of your fridge. And it's this kind of detail that I think makes such a big difference. Just a thought to put this in the kit so you don't have to go scrounging around to find something yourself. And you also get these incredibly detailed and easy to understand instructions with illustrations for every step along the way to make the install as easy as it possibly can. 3D Print RV also have a number of other products on their website to complement their KlevaCool fridge fan kits, and one of those is a Bluetooth temperature sensor that goes inside your fridge and connects via an app. We'll be installing this as part of the video also, and I'll run you through how easy it is to connect and monitor the temperatures inside your fridge. Now the advantage of these Australian made kits is they're continually being developed. So this is an improved kit which comes with stainless steel grills that sit over the fans. It's got these clips on the side that go into the cooling fins that you find in most of your three-way fridges. If you don't have those, there's a hanging kit you can also buy that makes this kit a very easy install even in older fridges.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
So before we get into the install of the internal fan kit, let's firstly run through the external fan kit, which you'll see here, that we fitted a few episodes ago. If you haven't seen this episode, certainly go and have a look at it. This is the first step as far as I'm concerned from a three-way fridge fan cooling point of view. The aim of these fans is to draw air in through the cavity in behind your fridge and to help exhaust it back out, particularly on those very hot days. And then when it comes to the internal fridge fans, the idea of these is to circulate the cold air around inside of the fridge a lot more efficiently. What you end up with in a lot of fridges where you've got a lot of food and supplies in there is that they don't work very efficient, and you can get some warm and cold spots where if you've got the food right up against the cooling fins, they do have a habit of freezing up, and that obviously diminishes the efficiency of the fridge. But you can also have hot spots that are created around the front door side of the fridge. So if you've got milk and items that are sensitive to heat, they can sometimes be sitting in the warm air as opposed to the cool air that gets trapped between all the other supplies that you've got sitting in your fridge. So the idea of these fans is that they're temperature controlled and they circulate the heat not only through the cooling fins on the back of the fridge itself, but also ensure that the cool air is circulated around inside the fridge cavity to keep the temperature throughout the fridge as consistent as possible. So anyway, let's get into the install now and I'll show you how easy it really is. Stepping inside your caravan or camper trailer, you'll have your three-way fridge if you're looking to install one of these kits. Up the back of the fridge, you'll hopefully see the cooling fins all nicely exposed on the back wall of the fridge. And then underneath there should be a drainage tray. Now, if you're really lucky, that drainage tray will actually have a drain that runs out the back of the fridge so it can drain the condensate back out. There's quite a few models out there, however, that don't have that drainage tube, and that's what makes the installation just that little bit tricky, because down the back on this side, particularly with the Thetford fridges, you'll see a little hole with the thermostat wire coming out and connecting to the cooling fins. That wire then goes in through the back of the fridge, and that becomes your access point to feed your wiring through. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here because there's a little tip that I found to help you out. Royce from 3D Print RV provides this filament, as I discussed at the introduction. I had real trouble trying to force that through the foam insulation on the back of the fridge. So what I've ended up doing is actually getting a heavier gauge piece of wire, and I've taped that filament onto the end of the wire. What that allows you to do is to force this through without the filament deflecting, and you can then pierce it through the insulation in the back of the fridge and poke it out the back where you can reach up and pull this filament down and then out through the hole where the lower vent is on the outside of your van. We'll look at that shortly, but that's just a little tip and trick before we get into the initial stages of mounting the internal fans themselves. So the first step is to do the mechanical installation of the fan kit itself. You'll notice on the side there's these little tabs. What they do is they clip over the fins, and then this top ridge on the back of the frame itself sits over the top, which I'll try to show you in a video. However, it's a little bit tricky trying to get cameras in there when this is all mounted in. But the idea is the fins sit down through here, and then this upper lip sits over the top of them. So what we'll do is we'll fit this on now, and then we'll feed the wires through, connect them up, and it's all pretty much done. So I think it's a good idea to have the wiring running along the top. So we want to work out roughly where this will sit, probably 3 fins in. We'll slot this cable into the appropriate fin so it's sitting up on top. And then we're simply pushing this frame in over the top so it's sitting all nice. And then we can feed this cable up around the back and tidy that up once we get into that stage of the installation. So that first step wasn't too hard at all. What I will do now is just check that it's sitting on the right fins. I'll make some minor adjustments, make sure it's all sitting level, sitting tight, and more importantly that the cabling isn't pinched anywhere. And then we'll get into the fun bit on our particular install, where I feed this heavy wire through that has a filament taped onto it so I can get it out into the fridge cavity. We'll run to the other side, we'll pull the vent covers off so that we can reach up, pull this filament down, and you don't want to pull it out all the way, because the next step is to attach this wiring harness onto the end of the filament. You simply tape it on so we can use this as a pull to pull it through the hole and into the fridge cavity itself. Pull it down, then it's a simple case of putting on a positive and a negative terminal, and this connects into the back of the KlevaCool harness for the external fridge fans. It really is pretty easy. The hardest bit will be feeding this cable in through that little hole on the back of the fridge and pulling it back down. So we'll get onto that now, attach this, and then give it a test to make sure it all works. Then it's simply a case of removing these 2 vents to gain access into the void in behind the fridge. Disconnect the fans if the external kit is fitted, and then you have access to the rear of your fridge. On the Thetford fridges like what we have, up towards the rear of the van in the back of the cavity, you'll be able to reach up and pull that filament down. So we can then pull the rest of the cabling through into the cavity behind the fridge. If you're lucky enough to have a drain tube, it's most likely on this side, and you'll simply be able to pull that filament out and start pulling your cabling through into this cavity as well. And here's the filament out through the lower vent. Now that I've fed a part of this filament down into the fridge cavity, I can very carefully pull out this feed wire to make sure there's enough room in that hole so we can pull the cabling back through. So now what I'm going to do is fold this over, and then I'll simply tape this onto the end of the filament here and feed it carefully through. You can use any tape in particular, to be honest. I would normally use electrical tape, however, for some reason I can't find any, so I'm just using painter's tape for now. And now we'll feed it back through outside and hope it comes through in one piece. So let's pull it through and fingers crossed it doesn't get caught and pull the cabling off the other end. If it does, don't stress out too much. It's just a case of feeding this back through, taping it on a little bit better and having another go at it. I can feel it coming through. And there we are. Now you don't want to pull too much through at this point. You just want to have enough that you can work with and then go back inside and check to make sure that it's not too tight. The important thing is inside where the fans are themselves, you want to leave a little bit of slack so you can pull them off if you need to anywhere down the track. It's really good that you can actually disconnect the harness if you need to. However, you want to have a little bit of room to do that. So make sure there's a little bit of slack in the fridge and then we'll get on to the next step. And now it's just a case of feeding this back up through to the upper vent, hopefully following the wiring loom you put in when you did the external fan, and then we'll put the terminals on. Now what I've done with our particular Thetford fridge is the water line runs just above the top of the opening here. And that's what I used to tie the original loom for the outside fridge fans onto before it went up through the cavity. So I've done the same. I've run the wiring back through there, up through the same part of the cavity, and then I've pulled both of my looms down and just taped them together for now so that they're an equal length. And what we'll do is once we get all this operational, we'll tidy it up and cable tie this all together so that it becomes one join loom that connects the outside fan with the inside fan and keeps it all nice and tidy. But what we'll do at this point is I will cut the cable at this point. We'll strip off a little bit of the outside insulation to expose the two wires in between. Then we'll strip them off and connect the terminals that then get slid into the back terminals of the KlevaCool external fan plug, and that will join the two circuits together. Now you don't need to strip too much off these. I like to use these wire strippers as they clamp and then strip the insulation off. We'll just twist the ends. Then you simply crimp on the bootlace terminals provided in the kit. Then you just fit them into the back of the plug so that the red is on the outside, black is on the inside, but follow the instructions provided by KlevaCool and you can't get it wrong. And you'll also note the board on the back of the fridge fan has the positive and negative terminals marked on them, so you can always cross-check onto this board that the plug goes into as well. You will need a really small thin blade screwdriver to undo the terminals on the plug. Just loosen them off enough to put the terminal in, and just like that, we're connected into the back of the main plug like so. So it's plugged in like so. Now we'll give it a test and make sure it all works. Now to test the internal fans are working, it's the same as the external fans, where you just flick the switch where it says on the PCB board. So if your external fans are working just like this, your internal fans should be working just like so. Now to operate, you move the toggle to the middle to turn off, and that is a manual operation. You can then have it set to auto, where the fans come on without the LED, and then off to the left where LED is printed on the panel, and that turns both the light and the fans on at the same time. So that is very good. So these are set so that they come on at 3 degrees and keep running until the internal temperature of the fridge is down to 1 degrees, and then they'll turn off themselves. And to me, they're pretty much ideal settings, so I don't think you really need to touch this too much. I would just install, run it for a while, check it with one of these Bluetooth temperature sensors just to make sure everything is working right, and then if you need to make any tweaks down the track, you've always got the instructions to do so. And now with the fridge running for a little while, I've been testing out the Bluetooth temperature sensor. It's pretty good, it's reasonably accurate, and it's compact enough you can place it anywhere in the fridge without taking up too much space. It does come with 2 magnets on the back. However, I find with fridges, there's not really much you can stick it onto. So it might be a good idea to find a good spot and double side tape this onto the side somewhere. You could always place it in the door, which would be a good idea because that's where you sometimes have a little bit of a hot zone on the front side of the fridge. But from a communication point of view, it's extremely handy that you don't have to keep opening and closing the fridge. You simply install the app and it's all displayed on your phone. And to get this all set up, there's a nice set of clear instructions that run you through the process of downloading the app and getting it all paired to your phone or mobile device. So you can go through quickly and get it all set up without any fuss at all. Now this handy little temperature sender is quite intuitive. It gives you both the relative temperature and the humidity. It will also record temperatures for up to 100 days to give you an accurate readout on how your fridge is performing while you're on a trip. That's a nice little tool to have, particularly if you're traveling remotely and you want to make sure that everything is staying all nice and fresh inside your fridge. And that's nearly pretty much it. We now have our internal fan to circulate the temperatures inside the fridge to keep all our food all nice and fresh while we're on a trip. And we also have the external fans to ventilate the cavity in behind the fridge to keep everything running as efficiently as it can. And if you stuck around for this long, I thank you very much. And we've got a little sneak peek on the final piece of the puzzle, which ties the KlevaCool system together. In the next episode, we release the new KlevaCool remote that we've been testing for Royce over at 3D Print RV. And this little switch locks everything all together and allows you to have a little bit more control over these fans, particularly when your caravan or camper trailer's in storage. As for all the KlevaCool kits, it's pretty much plug and play. So stay tuned for that one. And we've got a lot more great content coming along also. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, like this video if you enjoyed it, and put a few comments below, particularly if you think these fridge fan kits are a really good idea. I personally think they are, and we'll be doing a very similar upgrade to our Jayco journey in the very near future as well. Anyhow, I've got to get running. I've got to do the final install of the KlevaCool remote so that I can finish that video. I've done a little cool introduction to that one, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and as I always say, get out there, stay safe, and have fun. We'll catch you next time.